Christmas is just around the corner and you need ideas on what to buy the woodworker in your life. So stick around and I'm going to show you a few of the items that I think everybody should have, or stuff that they're probably going to really want and love when you give it to them. And just because I don't have a big woodworking beard doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. So to increase my credibility, I guess I better put the Santa hat on at the very least. So let's get into some of these first items. And don't worry, I'll leave links for everything down below. I'll try to go through things in order of rough cost, starting at the lower cost items and working my way up. Depending on how much you love that woodworker in your life, you might not want to buy them some of those really expensive things. But let's start off with something more budget friendly, something like a Pica-Dry pencil. This thing, I love it because it has a little clip that can slip in your pocket and the pencil is right there handy to use all the time. It has a really nice thick lead in it, so it doesn't break very easy, especially if you're making some rough marks on some rough milled lumber. It just doesn't break easy at all. If you're going to buy this, make sure you buy it with the set of water soluble leads, because it comes with yellow, red, and the regular graphite. The regular graphite type of lead is almost indistinguishable when you put it on a piece of dark wood like walnut. You can't even see the line. But that red lead that it comes with, the red one marks beautifully on walnut, and your woodworker will love that in their stocking. Oh, and actually if they use an apron, then it also clips or goes into some of those sleeves and aprons very nicely as well. Really nice item. In a similar price point is a digital angle finder. This can be used for all sorts of things, from setting up machines to finding angles for table saw blades. And it works really simple. You just push the button, turn it on. You can zero it out on a surface that you know is flat or that you want a reference to, and just put it on that angled surface and it'll tell you whatever that angle is. So another really good, inexpensive, roughly $30 or $40 item, and you can find those all over the place. Now, I hesitated to put this next item on the list because I'm not really certain if the loved one in your life is actually going to have one of these or not. It's a moisture meter. When you're doing woodworking, you want to make sure that the wood you're using has acclimated, or that it's in equilibrium as far as the moisture content goes, because you don't want that project to split or curve or cup or bend or bow or just deform in any way. And a moisture meter can really ensure whether or not that project is going to stay the way you built it 6 months from now, 6 years from now. And they're not really that expensive. They're in the $50 zone roughly. And this one is actually a little bit more than that. And it's the one that I prefer. It's from a company up here in Canada called comprotechcanada.com. And it works very simple. You push the pins into the end of a board and you just turn the dial up until the red light comes on. And when that red light comes on, you can look at the scale here. This one says 7%. So you know that board is at 7% moisture content, which is nice and dry, very safe to use for a furniture grade project. One way you might be able to know whether or not the woodworker in your life even has a moisture meter is just think back to conversations you've had with them. If they've ever mentioned the moisture content of a board, or that they've went to the sawmill or the lumber yard and they've checked the moisture content, they probably already own a moisture meter. So I'd probably pass by that one on the list. But if you've never heard them talk about moisture content of any of their lumber, it's a pretty safe bet. If not, save your receipt. You can always return it and exchange it for something different. The next item I've got here is probably around $50, maybe $60 now. I bought it a few years ago, but it's a dust mask. That's kind of hard to say, dust mask. I've been using one for a few years in the shop now. I actually made a video on it. I'll leave a link up top so you can see a little bit more about it. If your loved one that does woodworking does any sanding, which surely they do, and if they use a table saw, which once again, surely they do, a dust mask is going to be very helpful to keep their respiratory system nice and safe. There's a lot of fine dust that gets into the air in a shop, so this is going to help prevent that getting into their lungs, keep them safe so that they don't have long-term respiratory issues at some point in the future. This is the model M2.5 version, and they've got replaceable cartridges and filters on the inside of that mask. So very useful item and not going to break the bank. With the next item, we're going to jump up in price a little bit. So this is a Veritas PMV11 chisel from Lee Valley, and it's the 1/2 inch wide version, and it's the bevel edge chisel. So the bottom of the chisel is not at 90 degrees to the sides. The sides are actually sloped so that you can do dovetails with these. So if your significant other actually does dovetails, they might actually own these chisels already or a competitor's chisel. So maybe you don't want to buy it for them. But how do you know if that woodworker in your life even has bevel edge chisels? Most woodworkers are going to keep their chisels really close to them. So the next time your woodworker is gone to the grocery store or they're off buying gas, go down into their shop, go out into the garage in the shop, go take a peek. They might have some drawers underneath of their bench. Look in the drawers for chisels that have these bevel edges. Or if they have a tool cabinet in behind their bench, open it up and take a look. They're going to be all close together, okay? So I've got my bevel edge ones here, and then I've got the standard big box chisels that have the bottom of the chisel at 90 degrees to the sides. So those are just standard bench chisels from a big box store, which are great, but these bevel edge ones are going to be much more useful if they're doing fine woodworking like dovetails, for example. If they don't have any, start off with a 1/2 inch wide one. It'll be a very good one to start with because down the road you can then add a 1/4 inch, a 3/4 inch, maybe even a narrower one, or fill in some gaps. And if you're a woodworker watching this video, you can thank me later because I'm setting that person in your life up to be able to buy you more things down the road when you have a birthday or when you have another Christmas. And over the course of 1 or 2 years, you'll be able to have a nice set of chisels and you didn't have to buy them. You can thank me later. The next item is kind of 2 items all in one. And it's going to be a set of table saw blades. A lot of woodworkers don't even realize that they need 2 blades or that their woodworking can be taken to the next level by owning 2 table saw blades. Most people own a single combination blade that's a 40 tooth blade. But if you go and buy them a 24 tooth ripping blade and a 60 tooth cross-cutting blade, their cuts are going to be cleaner, faster, more efficient, and they're going to get a better finished edge where that cut is, especially with a 60 tooth cross-cut blade. This thing here will make it so that there's very little chip out or tear out along the edge of that cut, both on the top of the board as well as on the exiting end of where they're making a cross cut. Now you might think these are a little bit difficult to buy, but they're really not. Most table saws in shops are a 10-inch diameter blade, and they have a 5/8 inch hole for the arbor. That's just the shaft that it mounts on the table saw through. You can go to the shop once again when your woodworker is not there and they're out of the house, and you can go to the shop and look at their table saw. It'll probably be a 10-inch table saw. If it is, you're safe with the 10-inch blade. And almost all of them use a 5/8 of an inch arbor for that center hole. The one thing you may need to watch out for is whether or not that saw is a saw stop saw. So look at the saw. If it says saw stop on it, you're going to need to look at the packaging that that blade is coming in, because most manufacturers will say that it works with a saw stop or not. And that saw stop is the type of saw, just so you know, it's the one where if skin touches the blade, then the blade retracts into the table of the saw out of harm's way and you don't get cut or you don't lose a finger. Most saw stops have their logo and branding just plastered all over the saw. The cabinets are black, so they should be pretty easy to identify if you go in their shop. Now, when you give them those blades for Christmas, they may not even know, if they're more of a beginner woodworker, why you're buying them 2 blades, but you're gonna tell them. They're gonna open it up and they're gonna be like, wow, I got table saw blades, but they're different and I don't know what's with this one, looks different than that one. You can say to them, hey, I saw this crazy guy on YouTube and he said that the 24 tooth blade is for ripping and the 60 tooth is for cross cutting. That's all you're going to need to say. They'll know exactly what you're talking about and you don't need to know any more than that. Just go and buy them. The next item is going to be parallel bar clamps. And if you buy them parallel bar clamps, you're going to want to buy them 2 parallel bar clamps. And I'm going to recommend that you start with the 24-inch ones or 600 millimeter ones, because for most projects in a woodworking shop, that's going to be long enough to cover pretty much any project that your woodworker is going to be building. Go look in their shop and see where all their clamps are stored, if they even have these, because maybe they've got a good collection of them already. But if you don't see something that looks like that, then rest assured they want them. They're just too hesitant to go and buy them themselves, or they're too cheap to do it. And you're going to want a pair of them, because when you use them together like this to glue up a panel, it makes a nice level surface to be able to glue things up. If you just buy them one, those boards are going to sit at some random angle, but you're going to want those pieces nice and stable right where you want them. So buy two to start with. Once again, kind of setting you up to be able to buy something for their birthday or for their Christmas presents in the future, just like that bevel edge chisel. And when their birthday rolls around, buy one more. Christmas rolls around next year, buy one more. Just keep adding until you've got about maybe 6 or 8 of these in the inventory, because they're probably going to need about that many to do projects over the course of their woodworking life. Just go and buy some if they don't exist in the shop already, and that woodworker is going to love you for it. Up to this point, all the items that I've talked about are fairly budget friendly. Okay, some of them are maybe getting up there a little bit, but the next item is gonna take it to the next level. So depending on how much you love your woodworker in your life, the next thing I'm gonna recommend that you buy is a dovetail saw. Now this one is from Rob Cosman up in New Brunswick, Canada. I've been using it for almost 2 years now. I love this thing. It cuts really straight, it's easy to use, it's easy to start a cut in a board. That item right there, if you buy that for your loved one and they do any kind of, or they've been talking about doing any kind of dovetails, but they're just sort of talking about it, and you know they don't have a good dovetail saw, buy this for them, they'll love you for it. And while you're up there on his website ordering this, also pick up some of the magic plane wax, because you can put it on the side of the saw plate to make the saw go through the wood a little bit easier. And if they have hand planes, then that'll also be put on the bottom of the soles of the planes to make the planes go across the wood much easier. Now, depending on how long your woodworker has been doing woodworking, they may or may not even own any hand planes. And you can once again go to the shop and take a peek around for hand planes. And this is where some of the prices get a little nuts, to be quite honest. But if you love your woodworker and you've got a good budget for Christmas, then you can go and buy some of these items. Go look in the shop for hand planes. Maybe you've seen them using hand planes already. Maybe you haven't. Maybe they're frustrated with a hand plane, or they never use it because it just doesn't work. So you can go and buy them a plane that's going to work right out of the box. A really good block plane would be the Wood River block plane. It's a low angle block plane, or the Veritas low angle block plane. Jumping up from there, you can go to a 5.5 plane. This is the Wood River. You can get it from Woodcraft in the United States or from Rob Cosman in Canada. And this is a Lie-Nielsen 5.5. It's the same plane. It's just the Lie-Nielsen has a much more refined look to it, better fit and finish, and they both work beautifully. How do you know what the plane even is? Well, somewhere on the sole here, or on the base of the plane, it'll tell you what the size of it is, stamped right into the cast. Go to the shop, see if they have any planes like this, and if they don't, consider buying them one. And they will just be over the moon when they unwrap that and see that, especially with the Lie-Nielsen one, because they're basically considered to be the best hand plane on the market. Anybody's gonna love having a Lie-Nielsen hand plane if they don't already have them. So that's my list of items for Christmas. I hope you liked it. Leave me some comments down below, especially after Christmas. If you've bought some of these things and you know if they liked them or not, let me know after Christmas in the comments. Come back to this video and say, hey, Gary, that went over really well, or Gary, you're a complete nincompoop. They didn't like that item at all, but I doubt that's gonna happen. So until next time, happy buying, happy shopping, and we'll see you in the next video. And usually I end these things by saying, go build something beautiful, but I'm gonna say go buy something beautiful for Christmas this year.